Richard, welcome to the show.
I am so honored to be here today. Um, I've been looking forward to this and the opportunity to chat with you and to hopefully bring information to your listeners that will help them deal with uh, the uncertainty of their life today.
Yeah, and as I was going through your information and your videos and your website, and we talked about it on the kind of like the pre-call. You've been mentoring people for 35 plus years, and the one thing that you said that I loved is that I'm not just a coach. I don't just help in business, right? That you help in all aspects of people's lives.
Yeah, I believe that a person is a total person. And so many times what we do is when we try to help people, we get stuck in one area of their life. And yet, there's no area of our life that's not connected to other areas of our life. Like, I believe that we live in a four-room house. We have the business room, and you don't, in most people's lives, especially men's lives, that's their biggest room. And that room can overshadow the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's also their number one room of mental stress. And, you and I were talking, I've never, in all of my years of working with human behavior, I've never seen stress at a level at which it is today.
Now, why do you think that is? Is it because of what's happening financially in the world? Is it because what's happening socially in the world? What do you think is causing that much stress, especially for the men who are listening?
Well, let me drop you down in some thoughts, okay? and to me, this is something that is not talked about. But you and I and your listeners, there are only two foundations that you and I can stand on in life. And these foundations today, one that needs to be strong is being weakened. One that needs to be weakened is strong. For instance, one of the foundations that people stand on today is guided by doubt, worry, and uncertainty.
Hmm.
And doubt today is running rampant. The second foundation is guided by belief, trust, and faith. And the interesting thing is that people ask me all the time, what percentage of people do you think ever use anything that you teach? 2%.
Wow.
2%. Because what happens is that if you want a better life, you got to build a better foundation. And the world as we know it today doesn't want you and I, nor your listeners, to be strong.
Mm.
They want us to live from the outside in. And from the outside in, how does the world attack us? Doubt. I've never seen doubt as rampant today as it is today.
Let me ask a question about that, if I may. Is it self-doubt or is it just doubt about what's going to happen in the world?
It's it's an ever-comforting doubt because no matter where you step, it's hard for people today to find stability. So many times I have conversations with people and they want to know, I just don't feel safe today.
Yeah.
I just, there's no place that I can stand that I feel I have stability. And when you don't have stability, it's challenging to have hope because a big part of hope is you and I being able to take a step and plant our feet on solid ground. And what doubt does is doubt keeps the terrain almost unmanageable.
Mm.
And every time we take a step, there's something coming at us from the outside. If you listen to the news today, if we just pay attention to what's happening in the world, there's just this sense of instability. And if you listen to people talk, they talk about doubt,
Yeah.
and doubt becomes a part of the conversations they're having. And the interesting thing with doubt is you cannot have doubt without having worry.
Mm, I
And
love it.
I'm sure you're having conversations with people today, and you can feel their worry.
Especially now with, as we were talking before, with anti-Semitism and business and all those types of things, I think a lot of the times conversations when I'm sitting down with guys for a beer or we're out with friends, it's about worry. What's not working? What isn't
Mhm.
good? What's happening in the government in Israel? I went to France for a wedding and my wife didn't want to go to the big cities because of fear of what might happen, the worry, right? And so I can see exactly what you're talking about when you say that we are being surrounded by worry and not by stability and faith.
Well, the interesting thing there is worry makes us want to protect ourselves. So what do? We tend to withdraw away from the stability of life.
Mhm. Mm.
And
Say,
as
hold
you
on.
would
I want you to say that again. We're surrounded by worry, and so we withdraw from the
from the
stability of
stability
life.
of life, because everywhere we look, doubt creates uncertainty. And it's interesting because I think one of the things that God has taught me over the years is that all emotions run in threes. When you really study the scriptures and you study the life and you take it all the way back, everything that was taught to us was taught in threes. And I think all emotions travel in threes. If I doubt, I'm going to worry. When doubt and worry come together, I'm going to be uncertain. And what happens to you when you become uncertain? What does it do to you?
Man, it messes with my focus. I can't focus. There's fear, there's lack of vision. I mean, it clouds everything, my relationships, me as a father, me and my faith, right? It clouds everything, essentially.
Yeah, and it makes you uncertain as to what do I do? I
Yep.
mean, I want to do something. Everybody I talk to wants to do something.
Yeah.
But when doubt, worry, and uncertainty come together, that's when it starts stealing people's hope.
Mm,
And when you and I lose a sense of hope, what do? We become emotionally paralyzed.
yeah.
And this is what I see happening today is people are emotionally paralyzed. And they're not using the mind that God has given us because you use the word, and the word is so important, fear. And if I can for just a second, let me just talk a little bit about fear because fear in and of itself is positive
Okay.
because positive fear slows us down.
Yeah. It's like a protector.
Yeah. The challenge is when fear becomes fright.
Mm, okay. Tell me
And
more.
when fright comes in, it just erases confidence. It takes away my clarity. It makes me uncalm. And from the day that you and I were born, and it's true about your listeners, there are 6 elements of fear that we fight our entire life. And see if we don't see these today. The fear of the unknown. I don't know about you, but I hear that in conversations every day.
Every day.
Yeah. Because when we fear the unknown, the word that it will erase in our life is trust.
Yeah.
In the unknown, I don't know who to trust. I don't know who to believe. So that fear then turns to an element of fright. And I am a different person when I am afraid.
Of course.
And then there's the fear of abandonment.
Mm,
I'm going to be left alone. And I don't know. I don't know where to turn. I don't know where to go to. And the feeling of being alone and looking around and feeling that everything is against you can frighten the daylights out of us.
Yeah. Is it there's a word that I learned in therapy, which was kind of like catastrophizing, right? If we're consistently afraid that bad things are going to happen, then we have the ability to catastrophize and make it seem even worse than it'll ever be.
I will always find in life what I go looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of my 16 laws that I live by is you are exactly in your life where you want to be. And people tell me all the time, no, no, I don't want to be here. Then why are you there?
Yeah.
It's a choice. And then there is the fear of failure. And we got this whole thing of failure all wrong. I mean, when people ask me, I've written 19 books.
Wow.
Four of what I've written are dictionaries. And in my dictionary on human behavior, I define failure with one word: fertilizer.
Okay.
All failure is fertilizer. Because you can knock me down. But if I have that inner belief, trust, and faith in myself, you can't keep me down.
So how do we build that inner trust, faith? You've talked about, and we've got, three more of the six to talk about, but doubt and faith. And how did you build your confidence, your faith, even during these times, let's say? And for those of you who are listening and not watching this, Richard is a little bit older than I am. You've got some more years on me. You've probably learned a lot more in life than I have. How do you build that confidence, that faith to take you through those hard times?
Well, this goes back a long time in my life. Um, I was adopted. The only thing I knew about my real mother was the fact that in New Orleans, where I was born, she was a prostitute.
Mm,
And I was the result of a one night stand. And she didn't want me. So at 2 months old, I was given away. And the home that I was adopted into, my mother never wanted me in that house. I was adopted because my dad wanted a son. They
mm,
had adopted three girls, and dad wanted a son. And I knew that my mother never really wanted me from the age of 6 to the age of 16. I can remember this so vividly that my mother used to make three statements to me. You are the stupidest kid I've ever met in my life.
shoot.
You're never going to do anything with your life. And then the one that would rip my heart out is when she would say, I'm sorry we ever adopted you.
Oh,
And my greatest day will be the day that you're no longer in my house. And when I was 16, we had moved to Oklahoma. And my mom had told me that if I lived in her house, I had to pay her room and board. And when I was 16, I called my dad on a Thursday night, just like I always did. And my dad came to pick me up at the grocery store where I was working. And I started to walk to the car, and my dad opened the car door, leaned across the top of the car, and said, Richard, wait. And when he stepped into the street light, I saw what was happening, and he was carrying a suitcase.
mm,
Walked over and he set it down beside me, and he said, Mother has decided that you can no longer live in her house.
oh, goodness. That must have been
And
a massive blow at that age, at
yeah,
any
yeah,
age, right?
yeah. At 16,
Yeah.
he reached over and he hugged me, and I could feel the emotions. And he said, Don't you ever forget, I do love you.
Mm,
And then he ran back to the car and he drove off. And I'm standing in the middle of a street screaming at him, If you love me, why are you going to do this?
yeah. Yeah.
And to answer your question, all of us have turning points in life. I had two that told me that if I was going to do anything with my life, I had to do it from the inside out, not the outside in. One was that night when I went downtown Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I rented a hotel room, and it was on the seventh floor. And I walked up to the room, put the key in the door, turned the lights off. And I walked over and I looked out the window, and there was no screens on the Hotel Ardmore. And I crawled out, Hidal, and I looked down 7 floors. And I thought, why would you want to live? Your real mother didn't want you. Your adopted mother doesn't want you. Why would you want to live? And on that ledge that night, I made a decision. If I jumped, my mother would win.
Mm.
And I wasn't about to give the lady that victory in my life. And that started a journey inside of me to really discover who Richard was. And the second one, which was the freedom point in my life, is when I was a sophomore in college, I made a decision. I had to go home and confront my mom and dad, because if I didn't confront that yesterday, it would paralyze me the rest of my life. I believe that in life, anything you don't confront, you validate with behavior.
Love that.
Anything you don't confront, you validate with behavior. I got to my mom and dad's house. I knocked on the door. My dad was the person who came to the door. And we were standing in the house, and my dad realized my mother wasn't there. And so he called for her because she was in the kitchen fixing breakfast. And she came out of the kitchen, and when she saw me, she just froze. And she took her hand, reached around behind her, untied her apron, dropped it on the floor, picked up her purse, walked out the back door, got in her car, and drove off.
Sheesh.
And I never saw her again. But let me tell you something. That was my emancipation. That was my freedom, because I realized there nothing I would ever do. And I lived so much of my life trying to prove myself to my mother that she was wrong. I wasn't stupid. I would do something with my life. I would make a difference. And when she walked out that back door, there was a freedom that came inside me. And it brought me to the number one philosophy in my life. Why spend my energy being a carbon copy when I'm the original?
Mm.
And I realized if I live my whole life proving myself to other people, then I don't have a life. I have an existence.
Very true.
And that set me free. And that feeling, when I get knocked down today, I just stop and I remember what my mother said, and that I have risen above that. And for you listeners, if you could walk around my house in South Florida, you'd find in 4 strategic places on a little yellow sticky note, there is a thought that I read every day, and it creates my purpose for the day. And that thought simply says this: somebody's going to need me today.
Mm.
Somebody is going to need me today. And I never know who it is. The other day, it was the gentleman who came to spray the house for bugs. And he's done this for me in my house there for about 10 years, the same young kid. And he's asked me, he said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Sure." And an hour and a half later, we had gone through a situation in his life that was holding him hostage. And I was able to give him not an answer, because I don't give answers. Because if I give you an answer, I have to adopt you. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I helped him find a direction. And that was just so important for me. And I live every day knowing that God is going to bring someone through my life today.
And so
That's
it's that deep faith. First of all, thank you for sharing that story. I think if you can get over, the not being wanted twice, essentially, and then build this this stability, this faith in who you are and what you bring to the world, I can see why you teach people to not have stress, and you're a mentor. Um, Richard, walk me through quickly, just so everybody listening can understand the 4 rooms of stress, right? Which is
Mhm.
business, family, social, and personal. Walk us how those do bring stress about. We talked about business, especially for men being the biggest one. And then we'll talk about kind of how do we not solve it, but how do we alleviate some of that stress in
All
those
right,
rooms?
let's get some misnomers out of the way, okay? Because one of the greatest stresses that I find in a family is trying to figure out how to balance your life. And when I was working on the church staff and I was doing counseling, I did a lot of marriage counseling and a lot of family counseling. And one of the things I would try to get people to understand, you will never balance your life.
Mm,
It's impossible.
agreed.
So let's stop trying to balance your life and let's put a word in its place that we can achieve. Let's create harmony.
Mm,
And for me, harmony is where we share three things: a common purpose, a common agenda, and a commitment with conviction. And the rooms of your life, that business, that family, that social, that personal, has got to be tied together with a purpose. And the business room has got the purpose of the business room has got to be more than just making money. That's where we destroy the whole concept of harmony, because everything becomes about money. It's not about learning how to build a harmonious relationship. You see, the number one stress in the family room is emotions. Now, you and your wife have how many children?
3.
Three. Do y'all ever disagree?
Oh, all the time.
I,
We
I
just
love,
came we just came back from a trip going to Europe where there was a lot of disagreement every day.
yeah. And to me, we we create conflict in the family room because of certain things. Number one, when couples get married, they stop dating.
Mhm.
And I've always been amazed at the extent that a guy will go to be with a woman before they get married. I mean, he'll do whatever she wants. He'll go to dinner and even pay for it.
Yeah. Open the
And then,
doors.
yeah, and and all those little things that are important. And what I find is after couples get married, they take the emphasis off of that something. There was something that brought you and your wife together. It was a special something. And it's what opened the door for y'all to see and to feel and to think, I want the rest of my life with this person.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when we get involved in life, we take our eyes off of that special something that brought us together. And then the second thing that I noticed is we want to try to make the other person the person we want them to be.
Yeah. Happens often.
Yeah. And it's challenging for people to understand. The secret to living together is to accept whom the other person is. And rather than work to change them, how do we blend personalities? You know, I get the feeling you probably have some faults.
A little bit.
Probably one, at
Yeah.
least one.
Yeah. Depends who you ask.
Yeah. Might be a different conversation if she was here.
Exactly.
But see,
Yes, sir.
and God created all of us as individuals. And as long as my eye is on that special something that brought us together, then what I'm doing is I'm looking at my partner from the beauty of the inside out. And it becomes more than just the beauty of the outside in.
Love it. I agree.
And
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 I think it's even more important as as time goes by in the family, because I've got three little girls. Um, there's so much happening with the girls, this morning, camp and hair and SPF and lunches, and we forget to connect, and then we come home and it's dinners and bathing and all that type of stuff, right? That in itself causes essentially stress.
Well, and a big part of that stress increases as children come into the relationship.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You and I both know this. You can share a bed, create a child, and still be total strangers.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Because we put the emphasis on the child, not on the relationship.
Yeah,
And I hear this so much in couples that I deal with that are going through the empty nest syndrome. Is that, we've lived all these years for the kids.
yeah.
Now it's time for us. But us has been lost. And that's why that dating is so important. It's why never lose that special something that's there. That's the glue that holds a relationship together.
Love it. Love
Yep.
that.
And then there's the social room. And here's the interesting thing about the social room. That should be your playroom.
Okay.
It's where you go to unwind. But, and I hear this all the time, I can't afford, I can't afford to have a social room. The financial pressure on people today is greater than most people have experienced, especially with the couples that are in their late 20s, early 30s, all the way up into their 40s, because they've been used to being able to have what they want.
Yeah.
And when people ask me, because every year there's a group of us that get together and we list the top 10 things that we see couples struggling with right now. And for years, number one was always communication. But today that's number two. Number one is finances.
Yeah.
Just how, and the word, I've never heard it used as much as what I'm hearing. How do we survive? And if I was to define the word survivor, it's a person who stands in the moment, frozen in not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing today. And then we have the personal room. And probably, I'm going to tell you, 97 to 98% of people's lives, they don't have a personal room. A personal room is where you go to be by yourself.
Mm. Like time alone?
Yep.
Or
It's anywhere where you go to be by yourself.
Gotcha.
And that room today in most people's lives, because of how much stress there is in the business room, business for most people today is upside down.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's happened is that we don't have leaders. We have participants. And because a leader is a person who leads through leadership. A participant is one who stands in the middle of uncertain what to do.
Wait, when you said a lot of people don't have where to go to be alone, what comes to mind is all of the Instagram reels that men go to the bathroom for 40 minutes and the women complain. And I think a lot of that happens because they just need a moment.
Yeah.
Right? They just need to be alone. There's so much noise happening that, being in the bathroom gives them that space, even though my daughters knock on the door sometimes or slide papers underneath the door. But yeah, there's times that we do. I think a lot of times in the personal space, we fill it out of fear of being alone.
Well, because people don't understand the difference between being alone and being lonely.
Okay.
And
Dive a little bit into that.
yeah, that we connect those two words and they're different.
Yeah.
Loneliness is a feeling that no one cares, or I've been abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Where being alone is having time with yourself. The value of the personal room is that every dream you and I will ever have in our life will be born in our personal room.
Mm.
I am at my best creatively when I am alone with me.
Correct. Yeah, me as well.
And for most of us, there's too much noise in our life.
Yeah.
Have you ever just needed just to get away from all the noise?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes my wife will ask me, like, I'll go to bed at, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. She'll say, "Weren't you tired?" And I'll say, "I was exhausted, but it's my only time alone."
Yep.
Or I'll wake up very early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. She'll be like, "Why'd you wake up so early?" Because I just needed no emails, no phone calls, no text messages, just alone. That's it.
I needed space in here by myself
Yeah.
because there's too many people getting in here.
Yeah.
There's too many people that are knocking at my life
And
who
trying to, energy
who want
vampires,
part of
right?
me. Yeah. And so many people today are walking around with extension cords trying to find somebody to plug into.
I love
The
that.
challenge is with everything today, they plug in and they don't let go because they have extension cords.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, technology is great, but technology can be a lot of noise.
Yeah. So Richard, in the four rooms, right, of the house, business, family, social, personal, are there different methods of bringing down the stress in each one, or is it kind of like an overarching methodology that you teach of like these are two or three things that you can give to the listener of like how to relieve some of that pressure, some of that stress?
Okay. Number one, and most important, get your life in sync. And to get your life in sync, you got to get your rooms in order. For me, if I want to have harmony in my life and harmony with those around me, my house has to be designed this way. The biggest room in my life, most important room, has got to be my personal room. You and I cannot lead another person past the point where we are.
Mm,
When I'm upset, when I am feeling overstressed, I'm not going to keep that to myself. As much as I try, I'm not going to do it.
yeah.
I mean, have you ever had that overwhelming day in your life and you go home and your wife looks at you and goes, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
And you don't want to regurgitate on her. So you tell her, it'll be okay. I just need to calm down. But yet, you can't calm down if you don't have time with yourself to understand, why am I living from my emotions up and not my mind down?
And I'm going to guess that being alone doesn't mean drink it away, smoke it away. It's being alone and actually like listening to your thoughts, your mind, your heart.
Yeah.
Correct?
It's for me, I can go out for a walk. That can be my personal room.
Yeah.
I can go to the gym and work out. That can be my personal room. It's anywhere you go to be by yourself.
Yeah. So get life in sync.
Yeah.
And it starts with
Personal
having,
room, personal room is number one.
okay.
Family room is number two. Because if you don't have the support of the family, you're never going to have harmony no matter where you go.
Yeah.
The third room then is your business room. And then your fourth room is your social room. And people say, you know what? I can't accept this because my business room is so important.
Mhm.
But your business room can also be where you hide.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And when I'm hiding, I'm not working to improve anything. I'm working to avoid.
Yeah. So
Now,
number one, go ahead.
so number one is you got to get your life in sync. Number two is you have to realize you cannot eliminate stress.
Okay.
If I could take all of the stress out of your life, you'd be dead in about 33 minutes
Tell me why.
because your body has to have stress.
Okay.
But are we using stress as a way to slow down or to speed up?
Gotcha.
I was on a phone call early this morning with a gentleman who they put in the hospital last night, has been one of my mentoring students. And he and I, for a long time, talked about the fact you've got to learn to control the stress in your life. You are working so hard to try to create a life that you're putting more pressure on yourself than your body can handle.
Yeah.
I am a firm believer that probably 95% of all human illness is the result of stress that controls you.
I can see that.
I think cancer is the byproduct of stress. And
Yeah.
most people collect stress. And I have people tell me all the time, I work better under pressure. That's a lie.
Yeah. Right.
You-
Or I need the stress to get things done faster and
yeah.
better. Yeah.
And all I'm doing is I'm doing more damage to myself. I'm making life a race rather than an opportunity.
So you saying that you can't eliminate stress for me automatically relieves some stress.
Yeah, it's like it takes a burden off of you.
Yeah.
But if that stress is coming to me from my business room, do you think I'm going to take that home with me?
Yeah. You shouldn't, but
No.
it does
But do you
happen.
think I
Yeah.
will?
Yeah. It happens.
And I go out to relax. What do we wind up doing? Talking about business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I tell myself, I don't have any time for me. And once you hear yourself say, I don't have any time for me, stress overwhelms you.
Yeah. It's taken over.
Yeah.
So you can't eliminate stress. I love that. What's number 3?
Number 3 is I need to eliminate the people out of my life who are giving me stress I don't need.
Okay.
You ever had someone in your life that was just a negative person?
For
And
sure.
every time you were around them, it was just all negative. That's all they had.
Yeah. Negative Nancy's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
And so,
let me ask you this question, because the Jewish guys who are listening, some of those negative people might be close family members.
okay, they're not going to like what I'm about to say.
Say it.
Family is blood. Okay, you'll always have family because you're of your blood. But when someone is negative, they are not family.
Mm,
They are a negative controller in your life.
I'm
And
writing this down.
yeah, and there's a conversation you have to have with them that is probably my mother-in-law used to work for me, and I fired her.
Brave
I had
man.
to fire
Brave
her.
man.
Yeah. And it was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Uh,
But everything out of her mouth was negative. And she kept my office just upended. So I flew back into town just to talk with her. And I told her, I need to apologize to you because I've allowed you to bring behavior in here that is wrong.
mm,
So I want to tell you, I'm sorry that I've let you do this, but I'm going to inform you. It's not going to happen anymore.
yeah.
And if it happens again, you will no longer be a part of this company. A week later, it happened, and I fired her
Yeah. It's leadership.
because
Sure.
we have to be leaders have to lead.
Yeah. Agreed.
And
Regardless of how hard the situation is.
I got a company right now that I'm working with that the mother and the father own the company. Their son is working for them. He needs to be fired. And their number one reason they won't fire him is they know he'll move back home.
They're like, forget that.
So they would rather let him tear the company apart
Oh,
than really face the issue.
yeah.
You have to control the negative people in your life.
I love that. I think that's a very tough one for the listeners, only because we run in a circle in a society in a community like the Jewish community that teaches you to uh, endorse and sometimes put up with that negativity. And if you want to eliminate it, you you're afraid of being ostracized, right?
Yep.
Or taken out because you don't like what's happening. But I love the fact I believe that you can eliminate the negativity with having what I call courageous conversations. And if the other party doesn't understand, it's not your fault. You try, like you do with your mother-in-law. I'm sorry, this is what I've allowed. You gave her the opportunity. It didn't work out. And then, you had to let her go.
I took responsibility for it
Yeah, 100%.
because,
Yeah.
you know, if you ask anyone who has been in an audience with me, and I've spoken on every continent, if you ask anyone who's been in an audience with me and you ask them, what do you remember about that guy? They're going to tell you 3 words. Behavior never lies.
Yeah.
That the essence of truth is not what someone says, it's what they do.
Mm.
And everybody is 2 things. They're a person, which is what you see. They're a personality, which is what you experience. We look at people, and what creates the disappointment, the frustration, the anger within us is not the person. It's the personality.
Sometimes what came to me when you said that was that sometimes we can be that negative person that
Yes.
people don't want in their lives. And so we have to introspectively look at ourselves as to how do we get our lives in sync, understand that you can't eliminate stress and eliminate the lack of faith. I mean, I think the first sentence that you said was brilliant, was eliminate that doubt and have more faith. So we're not that negative. I believe that negativity, like you said, comes from that doubt and that lack of faith. And this world today is telling us to doubt everything, like you said, and to not have faith. I think for now, if I can, as a Jewish man, we are being bombarded with uh, being doubtful about who we are, where we came from, and what we should stand for all the time with words like genocide, apartheid, Jews control this and that. Like we are being waves and tsunamis of doubt are trying to be fed to us so that we don't have faith in our belief.
Let me say something to you and understand how I'm going to say this, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of doubt is created by hate.
Mm.
And I know this because of what my mother did. I doubted myself. And I didn't love myself because my mother taught me I was not lovable, that I was wrong. And when my mother died, I had to make a decision. I was teaching at the university level, and I either had to go to her funeral or take time off and go be with my dad after everybody left him. I chose to go be with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
To go to my mother's funeral to me would have been hypocrisy. But I wanted to go to her grave and shout at her, look at me. I'm not stupid. I got 2 PhDs.
Smart man.
Yeah. I've made something of my life. I've traveled this world. I've written 19 books. I got 4 more I'm still going to write.
Nice.
And I am lovable because I believe in me and I trust in the abilities that God has given me. And I have the faith that I can make a difference as I walk through the lives and in the midst of people. Why? Because every day somebody's going to need me. And that's not selfishness. That's 3 things. It's my desire. I want to make a difference. It's my determination that yesterday is not going to rule my life. I am going to live from today to tomorrow, not yesterday to today. And I have the discipline to know when to say no, when to walk away, and when to remove people from my life.
Mm.
If you don't remove them, they own you emotionally. That's tough.
Very. And I think it's what causes a lot of stress because it doesn't give us the time to be in our personal room.
Now,
Uh,
can I add one more thing to that?
Please.
To achieve this, you got to practice 3 A's in your life. I have to know where I need to adapt. Because if I don't adapt, I'm trapped in yesterday. I got to know when to make adjustments. And I will tell you something. It's easy for me to know where I need to adapt, but the challenge is making the adjustments, because when you make adjustments, you're going to lose people.
Mm.
But you can't lose anyone who really hasn't been a part of your life. My law of life is never keep anyone in your life who's not a part of your fan club.
Yeah, agreed.
And when you do that and you start making adjustments, you're taking away control from people who want to own your life. And then what I have to do, I've got to align my life around my purpose. You have no idea how many people I've had come to me and they've told me, I'm not happy with my life. And I go, why? Because I'm not doing what I really want to do with my life. Well, why are you not doing it? Well, because people around me won't like for me to do that.
Yeah.
I am an original. God's given me certain talents and abilities. And I'm either going to use them and develop them, or I'm going to waste them. You ever been around someone in the later years of their life, they've told you, I wish I had?
Yeah. I read an article, it's in one of my speeches, the 5 regrets of people who are passing away. One of them is not having more fun. Two is not listening to other people and doing what I wanted to do. That was a big one. And so when you walk through life, always conforming to what other people want and need as opposed to what you want to need, I think that's where a lot of the stress comes in that we talked about during this conversation. And you kept on saying this, Rich, you said, God-given talent, I am me, I'm an original. When you have faith and the belief in that, right? We have something in Hebrew which is called bitachon, which is like ultimate faith that God is doing things on purpose for you for the best, then you eliminate the doubt and you walk in that faith with your head held high, to be able to deal, because you taught me you can't eliminate stress, to be able to deal with the stress to make you succeed.
Yeah, and this is why when I look at faith, faith to me is a commitment based in conviction. A lot of people have commitment until it gets tough.
Yeah.
Who was it? Muhammad Ali that said it's easy to be in a ring until you get hit the first time.
Yeah, until you get punched in the mouth or whatever that was. Yeah, love it. Richard,
But
this has been go ahead, finish your
yeah,
thought.
I want every one of your listeners to understand this. You live on one of those two foundations: doubt, worry, and uncertainty, belief, trust, and faith. And if you want to know which one you live on, study your behavior.
Mm, love that. It's brilliant. I always believe that God brings guests selfishly for me to learn. And that's why I do these podcasts so that the listeners can learn as well. If you loved what Richard gave and the value, first of all, it was incredible. Richard, visit richardflint.com, or you can reach out to Richard at richardflint.com. You have lots of seminars, 19 books, an Instagram channel that's growing. And I want to just say that, again, my belief is that a lot of these things that you're talking about as a mentor, is exactly what we need as Jewish men with what's happening today, with the want of the world to make us doubt who we are.
And
And we should,
that's the plan.
yeah,
That is the absolute plan that's out there, is to take your belief, your trust, and your faith away from you.
yeah. So, gentlemen, do not let that happen.
Yeah. By the way, in October in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, 10 through 13 weekend, we're doing a small group retreat on rehabbing the stress in your life,
Love it.
where we're going to take each of these rooms, and it's on my website.
We'll put the link in the show notes so that people can
Yeah.
take a peek at it and take a link at it.
We got to do something about this stress. We've got to help people to control this stress because it's killing people.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I believe that my father got Parkinson's disease because of stress, and then my mom had a stroke because of stress. I'm not a doctor. This is just my idea, my own opinion. But Richard, this has been incredible. As we tell all the guests, may you be blessed with strength and courage. Chazak ve'ematz. Thank you for taking the time to talk to the men, and I know that your mission, your God-given talent, is going to take effect and give value to those who have listened today. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Let's do this again sometime.
Let's do it. And gentlemen, stay tuned for the next episode of the Tribesmen Podcast.